Meanwhile, so as David is fleeing, as he's making his way out of the city and out into the fields, out into the desert, actually. Meanwhile, Absalom and all the men of Israel came to Jerusalem, and Ahithophel was with him. Then Hushai the Archite, David's friend, remember him, we read about him in the previous chapter, went to Absalom and said to him, "Long live the king! Long live the king!" Absalom asked Hushai, "Is this the love you show your friend? Why didn't you go with your friend?" So Absalom is not convinced that this guy is sincerely following him and not David. Hushai said to Absalom, "No, the one chosen by the Lord, by these people, and by all the men of Israel, his I will be, and I will remain with him." He doesn't actually say that's not David. He's not actually identifying who that man is. Furthermore, whom should I serve? Should I not serve the son? Just as I served your father, so I will serve you. Absalom said to Ahithophel, "Give us your advice. What should we do?" Ahithophel answered. So this is the guy who's supposed to be so smart. This is the guy who knows what to do. He'd be an older man now. Remember, he was Bathsheba's grandfather. And Bathsheba, of course, is one of David's wives. Now, she'd be significantly younger than David. But, Ahithophel is her grandfather, so he's probably the generation older than David. Uriah was her husband, and he would have been closer to David. Probably a little bit younger than David, but he would have been closer to being in David's generation. But this would be a generation probably above David. So David himself is getting to be an older man at this point. But he's an older man here, this Ahithophel guy. But he apparently has a long-standing reputation for being a very smart individual who is very wise at giving good advice. I don't know what kind of advice they're talking about. Military advice, life advice. I'm not sure, but he's got a reputation for giving very good advice. So Absalom said to Ahithophel, "Give us your advice. What should we do?" Ahithophel answered, "Lie with your father's concubines, whom he left to take care of the palace." I mean, he left 10 of his concubines behind. So Absalom is going to claim them for his own. "Then all Israel will hear that you have made yourself a stench in your father's nostrils, and the hands of everyone with you will be strengthened." So they pitched a tent for Absalom on the roof, and he lay with his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel. God's told David that he was going to do that. Way back in the fallout of David and Bathsheba in 2 Samuel 12, when Nathan the prophet comes to confront David over his sin, and he's laying down the penalties. 2 Samuel 12, verse 11. This is what the Lord says. This is Nathan speaking to David. This is what the Lord says. "Out of your own household I am going to bring calamity upon you. Before your very eyes I will take your wives and give them the concubines." Concubine is a kind of a wife, by the way, just so you know. A concubine wasn't like a servant girl or a slave. She was a wife, a second-class wife, so to speak. But a concubine is a wife. "So before your very eyes I will take your wives and give them to one who is close to you, and he will lie with your wives in broad daylight. You did it in secret, but I will do this thing in broad daylight before all Israel." So that prophecy, that word is coming true now. I don't know how many years. I mean, it's been a number of years. Because we followed the timeline from the rape of Tamar all the way to where we are now, and it's been at least a dozen years or so since then. And the incident of David and Bathsheba happened even before that by a period of time. So it's been at least a dozen years since then, but that word is now coming true. So Absalom lay with his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel. Now in these days, the advice Ahithophel gave was like that of one who inquires of God. That was how both David and Absalom regarded all of Ahithophel's advice. Ahithophel said to Absalom, "I would, or let me, choose 12,000 men and set out tonight in pursuit of David. I would, or I will, attack him while he is weary and weak. I would, or I will, strike him with terror, and then all the people with him will flee. I would, or I will, strike down only the king, and bring all the people back to you. The death of the man you seek will mean the return of all. All the people will be unharmed. This plan seemed good to Absalom and to all the elders of Israel. So Ahithophel's advice is to strike out David right now while he's on the run, on the lam, weak and weary. Do not give him a chance to regroup. Do not give him a chance to go into hiding and develop his own little following again like he did before in the days of Saul. Go after him right now, this very night. He says, strike him tonight, set out tonight. Go after him right now, get him while he's weak. Get him, and don't worry about the rest of them. Don't worry about fighting a war with all the rest of them. Just get him, and when you get him, you'll finish the battle. But Absalom said, summon also Hushai the Archite, so we can hear what he has to say. When Hushai came to him, Absalom said, Ahithophel has given this advice. Should we do what he says? If not, give us your opinion. Hushai replied to Absalom, the advice Ahithophel has given is not good this time. Now remember, Hushai is there to undermine Ahithophel. Ahithophel actually has the right idea. If Absalom had followed Ahithophel's advice, he would have won. But Hushai is here to undermine Ahithophel and give Absalom other plans that are designed not to work, to give David a chance to regroup and recover. So Hushai replied to Absalom, the advice Ahithophel has given is not good this time. You know your father and his men. They are fighters, and as fierce as a wild bear robbed of her cubs. Besides, your father is an experienced fighter. He will not spend the night with his troops. Even now, he is hidden in a cave or some other place. He's done this before. David knows how to survive hiding out in caves. Hushai is basically saying, your dad knows what he's doing. He's done this before. He has lots of experience doing this. If he should attack your troops first, or if some of the men fall at the first attack, basically if David gets the upper hand, whoever hears about it will say, there has been a slaughter amongst the troops who follow Absalom. Then even the bravest soldier, whose heart is like the heart of a lion, will melt with fear, for all Israel knows that your father is a fighter and that those men with him are brave. These are tough dudes. These are not weak-hearted layabouts. If you're picking a fight with David and his buddies, you've got quite a battle on your hands, which I think Absalom knows, which is why he's not certain exactly how he should approach this. So I advise you, let all Israel, from Dan to Bathsheba, that's from north to south, as numerous as the sand on the seashore, be gathered to you, with you yourself leading them into battle. Ahithophel seemed to want to do this himself. When he was giving his strategy, he kept talking about himself being the one to do this. Now, I'm guessing he probably carries a grudge against David for having raped his granddaughter so many years ago. Now Hushai is saying, you, Absalom, you should do this. Then we will attack him wherever he may be found, and we will fall on him as dew settles on the ground. Neither he nor any of his men will be left alive. If he withdraws into a city, then all Israel will bring ropes to that city, and we will drag it down to the valley until not even a piece of it can be found. So they're going to throw ropes around the buildings and just yank them down to the ground. Absalom and all the men of Israel said, the advice of Hushai the Archite is better than that of Ahithophel. For the Lord had determined to frustrate the good advice of Ahithophel in order to bring disaster on Absalom. So Ahithophel was right. If they had followed Ahithophel's advice, David would have been in serious trouble. The Lord would have delivered him, but it would have had to have been through a different way, and David would have been in serious trouble. So Ahithophel had the right idea, but Hushai is there to undermine Ahithophel. Hushai told Zadok and Abiathar, the priests, remember these are all spies for David, Ahithophel has advised Absalom and the elders of Israel to do such and such, but I have advised them to do so and so. Now, send a message immediately and tell David, Do not spend the night at the fords in the desert. Cross over without fail, or the king and all the people with him will be swallowed up. So my guess is that at the time that Hushai leaves to tell the priests this secret message, they're spies. They're all spies for David. So they would have to confer somehow with each other about what to tell David. So my guess is that at the time that Hushai passes this message on to the priests, to pass on to David, Hushai does not yet know what Absalom's decision is going to be. He has informed the priests what the two different plans are that have been presented to Absalom, but apparently Absalom has not made a decision about what he's going to do yet. So they're going to have to prepare David for either possibility. Jonathan and Ahimaaz, actually, yeah, that's good stuff. Jonathan and Ahimaaz, those are the sons of the priests, were staying at En-Rogel. A servant girl was to go and inform them, and they were to go and tell King David, for they could not risk being seen entering the city. But a young man saw them and told Absalom. So the two of them left quickly and went to the house of a man in Bahurim. Now David had just been in Bahurim back in chapter 16. He had a well in the courtyard, this man in Bahurim, and they climbed down into it. His wife took a covering and spread it out over the opening of the well and scattered grain over it to make it look like it hadn't been opened. No one knew anything about it. When Absalom's men came to the woman at the house, they asked, "Where are Ahimaaz and Jonathan?" The woman answered them, "They crossed over the brook," or "They passed by the sheep pen toward the water." The men searched but found no one, so they returned to Jerusalem. After the men had gone, the two climbed out of the well and went to inform King David. That makes me think of the two spies being hidden on the roof by Rahab back in the day, doesn't it? Remember that story? That's kind of what this makes me think of. So they said to David, "Set out and cross the river at once. Ahithophel has advised such and such against you." So they're operating on the assumption that Absalom will take Ahithophel's advice. They don't know for certain, but since Ahithophel's advice is the more severe for David, they have to operate the assumption that Absalom will do what Ahithophel says, because that's the worst case scenario for David. So David and all the people with him set out and crossed the Jordan. By daybreak, no one was left who had not crossed the Jordan. When Ahithophel saw that his advice had not been followed, he saddled his donkey and set out for his house in his hometown. He's done. He knows that the rebellion will fail now. They had one shot at doing this. They didn't take it, and Ahithophel is experienced enough to know that it's going to collapse now. He put his house in order, and then he hanged himself. So he died and was buried in his father's tomb. Ahithophel knows that Absalom is not going to win this fight. They had one shot at doing it correctly. Ahithophel told him what that one shot was, and Absalom ended up not going through with Ahithophel's plan. So Ahithophel knows that David is going to win this fight eventually, and when that happens, Ahithophel, is going to be public enemy number one, well, number two behind Absalom himself. Public enemy number one, and he's going to be put to death, so he's just going to take that out of David's hands and do it himself. David went to Mahanaim, and Absalom crossed the Jordan with all the men of Israel. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and stop there. That's a good place to stop. The next section will be about the fight between the two forces, and we'll make that its own video.